I don't believe it. I let them be gay, and this is how they repay me?
What's that supposed to mean?
If two men want to open up to each other and share a love more sweet and exquisite than anything a man and woman could ever find together, then that's their problem. But when they try to bring a child into it, I gotta put my foot down.
Well, excuse me, but who are you to say whether they should have kids?
A concerned American, Francine. I've always said you can't raise normal children in an abnormal environment. Do you know what that'll do to society? Girls playing with trucks, boys playing with dolls, horses eating each other. Yes, horses eating each other. Read the Bible. Good morning, USA. I got a feeling that it's gonna be a wonderful day. The sun in the sky has a smile on his face, and he's shining a salute to the American race. Oh boy, it's swell to say, good morning, USA.
Hello, and welcome to Gayest Episode Ever, the podcast where we talk about the LGBT-focused episodes of classic sitcoms, which is to say, the very special episodes that also happen to be the very queer episodes. I'm Drew Mackey.
I'm Glen Lakin.
And in case that intro did not tip you off, today we're talking about American Dad.
Gasp.
Gasp. It might be a gasp for some people. Some people might not have been expecting this. The episode we are talking about is called Surro-Gate. It is the 7th episode of the 4th season. It originally aired December 2nd.
Is it the 3rd season?
No.
I thought Hulu told me it was 3rd season.
It did. There seems to be some weird inconsistencies with how the seasons break up. So according to Wikipedia, this is 4th season, but according to Hulu, it's the 3rd season. I don't know. It originally aired December 2nd, 2007. I don't know why there would be that discrepancy. We're going to call it Stan Smith is a homophobe or Stan Smith steals a gaby.
I think Stan Smith steals a gaby. He's not classically a homophobe in the episode, I don't think.
That is an interesting point that we're going to bring up, in that his evolving take on homosexuality is weirdly more realistic than most TV shows, where it's not a one and done, like, I like gays now. He kind of has to constantly learn not to be a homophobe.
Yeah.
Which
we all do.
We all do. The episode is about Francine offering to become a surrogate for Greg and Terry, the anchor husbands, who are the neighbors to Stan and Francine, and Stan realizing that his acceptance of gay people has its limits. Glenn, what is your experience with the American Father television series?
Well, Drew, I guess I was a latecomer to the show. I probably didn't get into it until, I don't know, 5th or 6th seasons, and I think it was a combination of 3 things. 1, an ex. 2, my brother being obsessed with Roger, rightfully so. And 3, a joke that is actually in this episode.
Yeah, that was weird that you mentioned that joke being on an Adult Swim promo, and then I'm like, oh, well, this is the one where it came from.
Yeah, I was very excited to see it in context again.
I would not have guessed that this is the episode where that would have occurred, but sure is. Sure is. I remember watching the first airing of it, which was a post-Super Bowl slot on Fox in 2005, and I was like, this is garbage. I don't want to watch this. And then probably sheer boredom and being at home on Sundays made me eventually start watching it. And then I came to love the show. But I feel like a lot of people don't think American Dad is a good show.
Well, they're wrong.
They are wrong. I think they just have it in their heads that it's just like Family Guy. And it's like, if you don't like Family Guy, you wouldn't like this. But this is actually a very different show than Family Guy is.
Yeah, I'd say it's closer to a King of the Hill than a Family Guy.
In a lot of, and people are going to think that that is like appalling, that you're comparing this Seth MacFarlane show to King of the Hill, because King of the Hill is held up as like one of the best, and it is, but it does have more in common with King of the Hill in that it's more of a sense of a like community that it takes place in. I guess Family Guy has that too, but also as wild as this show gets sometimes, and it gets really wild, it is still a show about like red versus blue.
Yeah.
And that is something that most sitcoms at all, to say nothing of animated sitcoms, they might do it once or like once a season, but this is at the heart of the show.
I mean, I think the difference between this and Family Guy is that Family Guy became more about the execution of their comedy rather than, not ideology, but some sort of messaging that the show is built on. Whereas American Dad, and I think the reason a lot of people were put off with it first season is it leaned too heavily into that sort of twist of it being like a an attack on conservative values and modern America. I guess, like, we were still dealing with and coming off of the George W. Bush era.
We were in the middle of it. He'd just been reelected when it went on the air.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
And so we were wrestling with that. And I think it took until the end of second season for the show to embrace the strength of the characters that they had built and didn't need to rely on that gimmick. And once it moved away from the gimmick and more of the plots came out of the characters and their relationships, I think it just had more unity than Family Guy, which I enjoyed for some seasons.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different show.
We all watched Family Guy for a while, but when it started, we were teenagers, and it was a good show for us, and like we were in a good mindset to appreciate its style of humor. And there are some jokes that Family Guy does that do make me laugh.
I mean, we have brought up the mod intro several times.
I'm not going to cut it into this episode. I might cut it into this episode. That still makes me laugh. I think it's really funny. So Family Guy is funny sometimes, but the majority of its jokes are just not for me. They're not my style of humor. And also, it is, when you talk about like the mechanics of delivering jokes, it is a joke machine show. And I don't know, I know we've talked about it, but I don't know if I've ever explained joke machine shows on this podcast before. But like, I would say a joke machine show is a show that's primarily there to fire off jokes rapidly, and it will sacrifice continuity or characterization or even the plot of a given episode to fit in a joke if they think the joke is funny. And it's not a bad thing. It's just how Family Guy works. 30 Rock is kind of a joke machine show where it has a more flexible continuity and a goofier world than most live action sitcoms. Sitcom, I think it said sitcom. Sitcom. 30 Rock. I like 30 Rock. And even The Simpsons does this to an extent. And King of the Hill, I would say, would be on the far other end where like it almost never does that. And it has like a very tight understanding of its world. They're both perfectly fine ways of making a show. They're just very different. Difficult People, the one with Billy Eichner and Julie Klausner? Is that her name?
That sounds like a name.
Difficult People on Netflix is a show that I thought was very, very funny.
Was it Netflix?
Or Hulu.
I think it was Hulu.
Okay. It was a streaming series, and it made me laugh out loud a lot, which a lot of sitcoms don't do, but they clearly were there to like assault you with punchlines, and it just happened to most of them work for me. American Dad is more towards the King of the Hill side, like you said. Also, American Dad is in its 17th season right now. King of the Hill got 13 seasons. That will probably blow people's minds. It'll probably make some people angry because even after everything we just said, they're still not going to give it a chance, but they should. Looking at American Dad, it would be easy to dismiss it as a Seth MacFarlane show cloning a Seth MacFarlane show because the main 6 characters each map onto the Family Guy characters, where the dad is kind of dumb, the mother is put upon, the son is a nerd. The daughter is probably the most different. Like, Haley's not really a Meg at all.
No. Yeah, no. Meg, she's not as sad as Meg.
No, she's kind of dumb sometimes, but she has ideas. She gets out there. She dumps her boyfriend repeatedly.
Yeah.
Because she's better than him.
She also falls in love with a koala at one point.
She does. That's one of the ways this show is strange. And then there's a family pet that can talk but should not talk. And then there is a character who's like an agent of chaos who's kind of gay.
I mean, he's Poland.
He's Poland. Yeah, I heard Poland at first. I was like, he's not Poland. And Stewie is also kind of campy and has a gay sensibility.
Yeah. Yeah, Roger is, I guess, the Stewie
yes.
of the show, but there's something that just survived better about his gimmick.
I think they're both sociopaths, and they both kind of just like do whatever they want and the results are funny. I think the big difference between Stewie and Roger is that you can sexualize Roger and it's not that weird because he is like an adult more or less. But when they sexualize Stewie, it's kind of weird. And I think there's limits to
his hot stuffed bear boyfriend.
Yeah. I think there's limits to what you can do with that. With Roger, there literally is no limit to what they can do with him. He can literally be anything they want. He's kind of a secret weapon on the show. Yeah.
Strangely enough, Roger does not really factor into our gay conversation.
No. The 3 episodes, I watched 3 different episodes of this show to try to pick which one I wanted to do. Roger doesn't get a whole lot to do in any of the gay storylines because he's just kind of his own thing.
We should have a special episode, though, about like the 10 most queer Roger personas.
I'd be happy to do that. It is weird. He's such a thoroughly gay character. But also his, kind of like in the way that Paul Lynde is a very gay celebrity and people just didn't talk about his sexuality. Roger's like pansexuality kind of just is not commented, is not really thought of strange. It's like, oh, he can be male or female and he has apparently a lot of sex. Some people find him very attractive. Also, in the same way that Roger got expanded, they made the characters a lot goofier. Like Francine initially was just a put upon housewife, but she is a very bizarro viewpoint that gets expanded, and she's not like any other animated sitcom mom. She's just kind of in her own little world.
Yeah, one of the things I found interesting rewatching this episode is that it could have been so easy for them to make Francine a Karen, like as Stan is sort of like that alpha male conservative pro-government type.
Mm-hmm.
Like the sort of counterpoint to that would have been to have
like an awful white woman.
Yeah. They didn't make her an awful white woman.
So you mean Karen in like the current sense, not in like
Yes.
the Will and Grace sense, which is what I initially thought.
Oh,
Okay.
no. I mean it in the current derogatory sense.
Like she wants to talk to a manager.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, and they didn't make her that. And it took them a while, I think, to find that sweet spot for her between like lovingly naive towards Stan and also carving out her own personality that wasn't just in rebellion to Stan the way Haley is.
Mm-hmm. And also she really sometimes just doesn't seem to care about anything. And it's works. It's an odd sort of like lazy apatheticness to her nature sometimes that is funny and allows her to be in her own little world. Glenn, do you know what day American Dad started airing on a week-to-week basis on Fox? Just guess. Yeah.
Sunday.
May 1st, 2005, which was a Sunday, yes. Do you know what day Family Guy started airing new episodes on Adult Swim after the show was canceled by Fox?
May 1st.
2005, the exact same day. It is not a coincidence. Family Guy got canceled after its third season on Fox, canceled by my former boss, Gail Berman, who also canceled Firefly and does not like being pointed out as the person who canceled Firefly, but Gail Berman did cancel Firefly. Seth MacFarlane had been wanting to do a more politically focused show since Bush got elected. And that was his pitch to Fox. Like, it's like, okay, so Family Guy's going away, but what if we do another show for you? And it's like shaped a little bit differently. And Fox said yes, and it went into development. What they were not expecting is that Cartoon Network ended up buying the rights to make more Family Guy episodes relatively cheaply. And it went back into production around the same time. And so it put Seth MacFarlane's whole operation in a weird position where initially American Dad was supposed to be the inheritor to Family Guy's everything. But now that Family Guy was going to be alongside American Dad, they had to find a way to make it different and realize that like people weren't going to look on it as favorably because they could still just watch Family Guy. The weird thing that happens is that Seth MacFarlane, fairly successful as a showrunner, could have done the thing that a lot of successful showrunners do, which is keep making the same mistake you make again and again. I have one prolific showrunner in mind right now who routinely fucks up his...
Oh, yes. We all know who you're talking about.
Yes. And he easily could have been that, but he didn't do that. He actually let the show get taken over by the two co-creators who are Mike Barker and Matt Weitzman, who'd both worked on Family Guy before and who both previously wrote on Homeboys in Outer Space, which starred Kevin Michael Richardson, who voices the principal on American Dad, and we talked about in the Herman's Head episode. And I'm pretty sure Homeboys in Outer Space led to American Dad, which put him in the position to get hired by The Simpsons, which is a weird chain of events, but yay, Kevin Michael Richardson. So from a creative standpoint, Seth MacFarlane mostly stepped back and focused his attention on his baby, which is Family Guy, and he let the other two guys do their own thing. And that is how the show turned into something that was different from Family Guy. And it's a weird decision to think about because it is his project and he's the boss of bosses, but he's essentially taking orders from his underlings because they're running the show and he voices Stan and Roger. So he's part of the show, but he's not really creatively part of it. And there's an interview where he says initially, I didn't really understand what they were doing. But once we get to like seasons 4 and 5, where the show really found its speed, he's like, oh, I loved what they did with it. It turned into this very weird show that I would never have predicted would have grown out of the initial pitch, which was a show about a conservative CIA agent and his liberal daughter, which the show is still that, but it's much bigger than that now.
Do you agree that I want to say there's some roots of Rick and Morty in American Dad?
I was thinking about this for some weird, yes, because there's a lot more sci-fi than Family Guy ever did. And there's an entire season where Jeff is multiple years when he is traveling through space on a spaceship, and his co-pilot is the ghost of Sinbad, like the comedian, who's not dead, by the way. And that is much more Rick and Morty. But in watching Solar Opposites recently, I got an American Dad feel from that show, but that might just be because it's like the second in like a franchise, essentially.
Well, I guess I'm thinking of the episode where Roger discovers his second life that he's been living, and the way that they're able to spin an elaborate tale in the 22-minute episode that, is part of the show, but is also very contained.
Or like the underplot of the shrunken humans in Solar Opposites. I would relate that to the weird recurring like mini movie about Roger's poop being gold that like follows an advancing plot, but it's spread out by like several episodes at a time. Yeah. They're doing very interesting things with narrative. Can't say they're not doing that. I guess another weird TV connection for American Dad is that it's All in the Family.
Yeah.
And I never thought about that before, but Stan is an Archie Bunker and Haley is a Gloria. And Francine's kind of a dingbat. And then Haley's boyfriend, Jeff, is kind of a meathead. Also, Haley's boyfriend is Jeff Fisher, voiced by a guy named Jeff Fisher. He's friends with a different boss I had.
You have a lot of bosses.
I worked at a lot of jobs. He's a wine writer, and that Jeff Fisher owns a winery in Santa Barbara. He's not really putting on a voice. That's his normal talking voice. And they designed the character to look like him. So this guy's just like wandering through life and occasionally meeting like someone who happens to be a big fan of American Dad, being like, this is going to sound weird, but you sound and look exactly like a cartoon character.
And share a name with.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, they based it on me.
You should just say, I was cursing for a little bit. I was living inside of a TV.
I mean, that sounds great. And we kind of talked about it, but like another huge change that the show had was like realizing that they can let Roger out of the house rather than keeping it inside like Alf. And this gives us Genevieve Vivance, News Glance with Genevieve Vivance, who's a beautiful comedic creation. She's like a more evil Nancy Grace.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great episode. Oh, the last point is the scope of a single episode of this show might be bigger than anything Family Guy would ever do for the most part. Even when they do that, it still seems more grounded in at least a single episode reality. Because number one, they don't use cutaway gags almost ever. And that's something that Family Guy became like very strongly identified with. And I kind of don't know how else to explain it, how a show that could have like such a wild scope could be more grounded than Family Guy. But I guess like on Family Guy, literally anything can happen at any point. And once the episode gets going on the show, you have some idea that like,
this is the world we're playing in.
Yeah. They're not going to break the reality, I guess. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They set rules and they play by them.
Yes. Have you ever seen the episode where it's Stan dealing with issues with his dad, but it is done as a community play?
Yes.
Yeah. It's
beautiful.
It's really good. It's a really good, I don't know who came up with that idea, but I'm glad they got it. I feel like I could spend all day talking about American Dad and
why. Well, you shouldn't.
No. I feel like I could, and I still wouldn't get someone who is not into it to like budge on like, no, watch an episode of it. But because people have such strong feelings about Seth MacFarlane and Family Guy. This episode is directed by Tim Parsons. It's the first episode of the show he directed. He'd done like SpongeBob and Powerpuff Girls, but essentially now he just directs American Dad. This episode is written by Eric Durbin, who has also written for Last Man on Earth and Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23. It was a show created by Nanachka Khan, a lesbian writer who also created Fresh Off the Boat. We talked about Fresh Off the Boat in season 1. Nanachka Khan is one of the credited writers on Lincoln Lover, which is probably the episode most people wanted us to do.
Sorry.
Well, it's about Stan. I mean, we can do it at some point. And Stan sneaks into log cabin Republicans, basically, and almost has sex with Terry. But to me, it feels like a Family Guy episode. It does not feel like this episode we're talking about feels like an American Dad episode where it had differentiated itself enough that it became its own thing. And maybe it's just because Lincoln Lover ends in a big like musical number that is very reminiscent of one that would have been on Family Guy. I don't think it's as good. That one won a GLAAD award though. This one did not. I think this one is maybe not GLAAD award worthy, but there's some good stuff in it. Okay, that's the background. Now we're in the actual episode. Every episode starts out with Stan singing in his tidy whities.
It's very erotic.
It is very erotic. He has like, I wrote like, he has a good body for a cartoon character. And then I corrected. I was like, he has a good body for a Republican cartoon character, especially. But like, there's not really another TV show that has its main character singing in his underwear, like right off the bat.
Yeah, but I'd counter and say there are a lot of attractive cartoon characters.
See, I don't. I think as far as leads on an animated sitcom, Stan and Francine are by far the most attractive. They're
Yeah, I mean, if you're just like, I guess you're narrowing down to like animated family sitcoms.
right. And it's weird because they're done in the Seth MacFarlane style, but like, oh, these characters aren't ghouls. Everyone on Family Guy is hideous. And somehow they managed to make it work. The only other attractive one I could think of is on the Cleveland show, which I have watched. Jason Sudeikis voices Cleveland's like work buddy, who's like hot in a Matthew McConaughey sort of way. And then he ends up being bi and marries a man.
That's nice.
Yeah, it is nice. Not a terrible episode.
Well, maybe we'll do it.
At this rate, with our season 3 that is well over 30 episodes long,
Oops.
we might well do that.
Well, listen, Drew, the people needed us.
Stan has an X-Shock body. We don't see Roger in one of his personas because the new opening has Roger in one of his personas popping up in the car every time. He doesn't have those alternate personas yet. Okay, so scene 1, Stan accidentally shoots a bald eagle out of the air while saluting his American flag by firing a gun into the air, which is the most representative sentence I could say about Stan, but also kind of Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's also, a great reach around because in his efforts to be more American, he ends up being less.
Great. Oh, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
I mean, that's really the only reason I'm here.
To point out things that, I mean, that is kind of, will also just be me talking to Thurman otherwise.
Yeah.
I don't know if people want to listen to that. So while the family is saluting the flag, they see their neighbor gays, Greg and Terry, across the street.
Hey, it's our favorite gay neighbors. What are you guys doing today? Shopping, brunching, parading, or taking the day off and just being gay?
Dad, what are you doing?
Just reminding Greg and Terry I'm cool with the man-on-man crowd. You two probably want to gossip. Dish, you queenie bitches!
Actually, we do have some big news. We've decided to have a baby.
Congratulations! Are you adopting?
No, we're having our own. Terry thinks we can handle this sort of seismic life change, so here goes nothing. Take my hand.
And there is an episode when they move in and Stan is suspicious of them. And it's kind of homophobia, but also kind of he doesn't trust them because they're liberal media. But that is the episode where he gets over his initial, like, I don't like gay people. He makes a show of how much he likes the gay people now.
Yeah, because he knows what they like, which is shopping, brunching, parading.
I mean, it's not wrong.
He's not wrong. How do you feel about Greg and Terry as gay representation on animated TV?
They are also drawn to be very attractive, and I like it when I like to see like dumpier older gay couples on TV. But I'm not.
They're not dumpy.
No, I like when like gay couples are not always hot because that's important for people to see. I like that they have a very fractured relationship. And Stan and Francine, there's a lot of like weird power dynamics going on there, and they're fucked up as a couple. And I like that they don't make Greg and Terry perfect. Like I think it comes up more than once where Terry is interested in not always being the bottom, and Greg will not even consider switching roles. And Terry just has to put up with the fact that he's not going to get this. And I like that like their power dynamic is as fucked up as Stan and Francine's, at least. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think had you asked me a number of years ago, I'd be like, I may have been uncomfortable with like some of the embrace of gay stereotypes, but now it's like, no, like I know this gay couple, like these people exist. And some of the things they may push too far into stereotype and camp. Like there's a moment later in this episode, which I enjoyed, but I'm just like, is that too much?
I think I know what you're talking about. I didn't like it, but yeah, the most of the stereotype stuff doesn't really bother me anymore because yeah, like I know people who would get a French bulldog and name him Heath Ledger. Was he dead at this point?
No.
Okay, that's even weirder. Greg is voiced by Seth MacFarlane. Terry is voiced by Matt Barker, the co-creator of the show. Matt Barker actually left the show in season 11. Terry left Greg, and Greg is now a single dad. It happens off screen, and the reason that's given is that Terry left Greg to go follow 311, the band. That's it. I really like Stan's line about, like, two men having a baby.
Guys, a baby's not like a fire. You can't just rub two sticks together and...
Yeah, that's a good line. Stan thinks that in vitro fertilization is science fiction, and Francine's like,
We're doing in vitro fertilization.
In vitro? What's that?
Well, we've got an egg donor. They'll combine her eggs with our sperm and then implant those embryos in a surrogate where, God willing, one of them will grow to term.
I thought I saw every episode of Star Trek. Wait, is this Deep Space Nine? Because I won't watch that. It's garbage, and I'll tell you why. One...
Stan, this isn't science fiction. It's real fiction, and I think it's fantastic.
I also like that in reference to science fiction, Stan talks about Star Trek, and of course he hates Deep Space Nine, which had a female captain.
oh, that would make sense. I didn't even think about that. That's probably why he hates Deep Space Nine. Is that the only one he doesn't like?
Yeah, it's the only, I mean, it's great, but it's one that, like, that type of Star Trek fan would not like because it has a female captain.
Francine is voiced by Wendy Shaw, and I think her performance is underrated. She has I will say, beautiful comedic lilt to her voice that I enjoy very much. And I feel like she should get more recognition along the lines of, like, Kathy Najimy's in your Julie Kavner's. Wendy looks like Francine in real life. Like, I am fairly certain they might have designed the character to look like her. She is the daughter of Richard Shaw, who we may talk about in the not-too-distant future because he was a regular on Phyllis. He also played Chuckles the Clown on The Mary Tyler Moore Show. And that famous episode where Chuckles dies, and that's the end of that character. That man was also married to Valerie Harper from 1964 to 1978, so Wendy Shaw was Valerie Harper's stepdaughter for that period of time. He also plays Jim Carrey's dad in Once Bitten. I know, I knew one of those would get you.
Of course it was Once Bitten.
Wendy Shaw plays Bruce Stern's wife in The Burbs, and then she's also in Batteries Not Included, but she's not the main female role. It's one of the smaller roles.
I was actually just talking about Batteries Not Included to a friend who would also just watch the movie Vastness of Night. How Vast is the Night? What's that movie called?
The Vast of Night.
The Vast of Night. I was just comparing The Vast of Night to Batteries Not Included.
I haven't seen Batteries Not Included since I watched it, like, on beta back in the day.
They are not really actually similar at all.
Wendy Shaw, in addition to those two movies, was also on a little sitcom called It's a Living, which, in case you don't know, is a show about waitresses working at the revolving restaurant at the top of the Bonaventure Hotel in downtown Los Angeles.
Which Drew finds a reason to mention every episode.
3 episodes in a row, because I'm hoping someone who's listening will be like, yeah, they did a gay episode, and they'll tell me about it, and no one's reached out yet.
Please, someone save us from this nightmare.
The first season's on Prime now.
Well, there you go.
And remarkable quality. So I don't think Wendy Shaw's on at that point, though. Someone tried to tell me that Anne Gillian's hair is gay enough on its own that we could do an episode, and I like that joke, but I don't think we can do it.
Scene 2.
Inside the house, Stan is furious that the neighbor gays would have a kid. And this is where his homophilia hits its limits, because he was fine with them being gays that live across the street, but the idea that they're going to try and make a child is offensive to him.
Yeah. He says, I let them be gay, and this is how they repay me. It's also a running joke on the show, Stan's attraction for men and attraction to the idea of two men having sex.
He almost has sex with Terry, and that's the episode, it happens before this, and it's the episode where he thinks that being gay is a choice, and when he realizes that he can't get it up and won't go through choosing to be gay to have sex with Terry, he realizes, oh, being gay is not a choice.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of believe it, and not like that stereotype of like all homophobes are gay, but just like someone who loves men that much and the idea of being a man, that of course it would kind of blend with attraction to men. It's like 300.
Wait, what's 300?
The
Spartan movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that was a reference I have not thought about in a long time. I was just thinking about the number 300. I was like, there's nothing gay about that number. What's wrong with you?
No, 3 is never mind.
And 3 kind of looks like a butt, but so does 8. I really like the joke about having sex with the couch.
Well, I admire Greg and Terry. They're taking their lives to the next level.
Francine, it's unnatural. I mean, why don't I just start a family with the couch? Hey, kids, how was school? Brush your teeth, stay off drugs. Hello, wife. Miss me? Huh? I missed you. Oh, man, the things I'm gonna do to you. Here, lie on your stomach. I'll prop you up with the kids.
Stan! man!
See how weird it gets, Francine?
It's just a very strange joke.
I mean, it's well acted, well drawn joke.
And there's a callback to it later when he tries to have sex with the couch again. I think he really wants to have sex with the couch. He also says that raising children in an abnormal environment will result in horses eating each other.
Which also comes back later.
Okay, so then we can just deal with the B-plot right now. The B-plot is about Steve and Roger doing a prank on Klaus and then being scared that Klaus is going to get back at them. Do you have any?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So for the rest of the episode, pretty much they just live in the attic for months because they are scared of Klaus's revenge. I mean, it's sort of what Stan is doing. He's so terrified of someone else's life and how it will affect him that he ruins his own life.
I didn't think about that. Okay, that works.
Yeah, so we don't have to talk about it anymore.
We do have to talk about some of the voice actors very quickly.
Yes.
There's some things you'll find very interesting.
Oh, good.
Okay, so Steve is Stan and Francine's son. He's a nerd. He's voiced by Scott Grimes, who is the male lead of the first two Critters movies.
I like that. I also just sent someone a picture of a critter yesterday.
Why?
Don't worry about it.
Is that your version of sexting?
Mm-hmm.
He played the son of Dobie Gillis and Zelda Gilroy in the TV movie Bring Me the Head of Dobie Gillis. He played the son on that weird Elliot Gould D. Wallace sitcom that was initially called Together We Stand, and they killed Elliot Gould off and called it Nothing Is Easy, which is so dark. Also, D. Wallace, also in Critters. They must have been friends. I like that. He was also on Party of Five in a major recurring role, and he was like opening credits on the final season of ER, and also he had a recurring role on Who's the Boss, playing Samantha's boyfriend.
Oh.
Chad. He's also now currently on The Orville, which is Seth MacFarlane's live action show, which I've never seen. And he's married to Adrienne Palicki, who's also on that show, and she was on like Friday Night Lights and stuff. But I know is
Wonder Woman?
That awful Wonder Woman pilot that David E. Kelly made. Roger's voiced by Seth MacFarlane. He's played simultaneously without gender and sexuality, but also very, 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 very gay. He's also canonically the survivor of the Roswell crash.
Oh, that's right.
Klaus is a goldfish who has the mind of an East German ski jumper whose brain was switched out of his human body so East Germany would lose the 1986 Winter Olympics. Initially, he's in love with Francine. They abandon it because it's too much like the Brian-Lois dynamic on Family Guy. Klaus is kind of the Meg Griffin of the show because everyone just agrees that he just sucks.
Yeah.
No one cares what happens to him. And I feel like as secret weapony as Roger is, I wouldn't know what the fuck to do with Klaus if I wanted to.
Yeah, I feel like when the show started, like, Klaus was going to have like Stewie Griffin vibes where he wants to like be evil and take over the world, which is what I thought the character was until I watched the show and I was like, oh no, he just happens to have that accent, but he's not a mad scientist at all.
Right, he's just German.
Yeah.
He is voiced by D. Bradley Baker, who's voiced literally every show you've watched in the last 2 decades. Avatar: Last Airbender, SpongeBob, Codename Kids Next Door, Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, Phineas and Ferb, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, Ben 10, and Legend of Korra. Now, we don't have to talk about them again, I don't think. Scene 3, there's a joke about putting clothes on a dog.
I found some of Stephen Haley's baby clothes in the basement. I'm going to bring them over to Greg and Terry's.
Good thinking, Francine. They can put them on their dog and forget about this whole baby thing. At the end of the day, all they want to do is dress something up.
Which is not untrue, but I put a Band-Aid on Thurman for the first time just this past week. So Francine decides that she's going to deliver all the clothes in person to Greg and Terry because she supports them. And Greg is shooting down all the ideas for a surrogate because he does not want a child. He's nervous about having a child, so he's finding something wrong with all of them. And Francine comes to the realization that she should be the surrogate by a line that I find very funny, which is,
I just wanted you guys to know I think it's great what you're doing. And I'm here for you, too. So, I brought you some of Stephen Haley's old baby clothes.
Oh, thanks, Francine. But at this rate, we're not going to be having a baby. Greg keeps shooting down all our surrogates. We're down to 2 candidates.
Wait, Yellow Teeth. She's a smoker. She's out.
Okay, so down to 1.
Oh, no, Terry, look. This girl lists her favorite movie as Erin Brockovich. Is that the kind of message you want our baby to absorb in utero? Show your boobs to get clean drinking water?
You know what? I'm exhausted. You exhaust me.
You can't blame him for being picky, Terry. You're putting a lot of trust in a complete stranger.
What are we going to do?
I'll do it.
What?
I'll carry your baby.
Really?
It makes perfect sense. I live right across the street, and both pregnancies were a breeze for me. Doctor says I have a big, spongy cervix. Oh, listen to me bragging about my vagina. It's last week's PTA meeting all over again.
Also love that line. And that's where I came to my realization that Francine could have been a Karen. Instead, she is her own. Like, you wouldn't think that this character would be dynamic. And they find ways to make her that.
She has very little self-awareness, but she's very nice. Yeah, I struggle to think of another character quite like her on another TV show. Big spongy cervix. And they accept, and she is now going to be the surrogate for Greg and Terry's child. So the next scene is a scene you know very well, Glenn.
Yes.
Tell us about this scene.
So this is a scene where Francine goes to break the news to Stan that she's going to be the surrogate. And when she tells him, he reacts very poorly. He breaks the bottle of beer that she had brought him to soften the news. And she's backed up against the wall screaming. And then he leaves and comes back with a chainsaw, and she's backed up against the wall screaming. Then he leaves and comes back with a jaguar, I believe.
Some sort of cat.
Some sort of jungle cat. And she's backed against the wall screaming. And then he leaves and he comes back and he's holding the jaguar who's holding the chainsaw. And it ends up all being like Francine envisioning how poorly it can go, so she doesn't tell Stan. This is the series of visual gags that ran as a promo for American Dad on Adult Swim that got me to watch the show, because I just found that escalation so perfect. Mm-hmm. And I just laughed and laughed and laughed. And it stuck with me all these years.
I mean, it says a lot about what kind of mindset Francine has, that's how she envisioned it. When it was a promo, did the promo make it clear that it was her imagination and not something? Okay, so that's another weird thing, that like, if you don't know that it is her like worst case scenario of how this news would be delivered, it's a scene of like kind of horrific domestic violence. It's interesting that they picked that for the promo. And yeah, she does not end up telling Stan, and she screams,
Francine, what the hell? You have something you want to tell me?
You need me alive because I'm the only one who remembers where you took off your shoes.
Which is also the only reason you're alive.
You do have a lot of shoes, and you do leave them a lot of places.
Glenn is really good at finding things that aren't his. It's really strange that he often knows where my keys or wallet or remotes are, and it's witch powers.
Yeah, if cops weren't awful, I probably would have made a pretty good cop, because I can get in people's heads. It's why I'm a good writer, and also why I'd be a good detective.
You should start a detective business specifically for finding lost articles.
Sure.
Very handy. We have to take a break.
To advertise my detective agency.
We can make that out if you want. Hey Glenn, you know what my present to you is this week?
Is it cheese?
I mean, I have cheese. You can have some if you want. Do you want cheese?
I love cheese.
Okay. Well, the cheese squares are still in the refrigerator.
Perfect.
The present is that we're going to do the Patreon ad segment a lot quicker this week.
Fast.
It's just box of compliments.
Bow, bow, bow.
These are the people we're complimenting because they gave $3 or more a month on Patreon. If you want to compliment from the box of compliments, go to patreon.com/gayest episode ever. I don't know why that took so long.
I don't think we need to talk fast.
My brain's not working. First, thank you to Robin Pavlokovich.
Robin, you're the third Gilmore Girl. If not a direct relation, then surely a cousin or something. I would say that Emily, the grandmother, is the third Gilmore Girl.
Well, you didn't write that. If you wanted a Gilmore Girl correct compliment,
okay, next week I'll write one.
Errol Rodriguez.
Ooh, a voracious power top like Marcy Darcy.
AJ, no last name.
Oh. AJ, you're Maya Rudolph's childhood best friend. It's a lot of responsibility.
I think she'd be a good friend. Ben Anderson.
Oh, what a very wholesome American name, Ben Anderson. You're the original lead actor on Harry and the Hendersons. So he's just Sasquatch, I guess?
I don't know. Also, he could be British. He doesn't have to be wholesome and American. He could be British or Canadian.
I said what I said.
Okay. Kelsey, parentheses, not grammar.
Oh.
Do you think it's Kelsey Grammer?
Oh, probably. The inspiration for Brainy Smurf. I don't know if that's a compliment. Brainy's sort of a bit of an asshole.
I said what I said. It works for you. It works for me. And finally, a person you know in real life.
Oh.
Blaine Amadon.
Blaine, finally. That's right. Congratulations on your new job, Blaine. Actually, a founding cast member of the Tracy Ullman Show. I guess you wouldn't really need that new job if that were true.
I mean, it's not on anymore.
No, but I figured like there'd be like recurring guest work on The Simpsons.
Not for all of them.
Really?
And only once for Tracy Ullman herself.
Huh.
Yeah.
But she gets money.
She does.
Well, she's fine.
But it eats away at her because it wasn't her thing.
Right.
Yeah. That's it for this week. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for supporting the show. There's a link in the show notes if you want a compliment read by Glenn next week.
I'm not very good at reading. I'm sorry.
You did a good job this time.
Thank you.
This is Drew and Detective Glenn, back from commercial. Francine, visibly very pregnant, is in the kitchen, so is Stan, and Greg and Terry have just made them dinner, and Francine offers to clear the table, and Greg and Terry won't let her because she's pregnant. Stan's reaction is,
No, let her. She needs to get some exercise. Look how fat she is. My God, you've let yourself go. You made your point, Francine. I love you for who you are. Jeez. I'm going to go look at thin women online.
I like in the scene that Stan just assumes that Greg and Terry have gotten over that whole baby business.
And how good do you feel sticking to the appropriate gay activities instead of that baby nonsense? And look, you got to wear an apron. That's almost a dress.
Stan does say some homophobic things in this episode, but you're right in that he's on a journey and you see that he's trying to say the wrong thing, or he's trying to say the right thing, but they are the wrong thing. But because it's coming from a place of growth, it's forgivable.
I mean, that's not a completely inapplicable notion to discuss what's happening right now. So yeah, there's the homophobia where you're yelling faggot to some guy on the street and throwing a bottle at him. And then there's the homophobia where you haven't undone the circuitry that told you that all gay men secretly want to be a woman and they only like womanly things. And you need to undo that so you stop making shitty comments like that. Yeah, that's the same thing with most people in this country and race. Yeah. The baby kicks. Greg is terrified to touch the belly. I relate to this because I find the notion of feeling like a human kick from within another human to be just sort of uncanny. And I when someone's like, do you want to feel it? I'm like, I don't want to feel that. And then Greg runs away because he's worried that he's going to be like Bing Crosby.
There's also a joke in this scene that one listener and friend of ours will enjoy, that Francine, enlisting things she can't believe, trying to deflect, says,
I can't believe you still haven't told him you're pregnant.
I can't believe Stan hasn't noticed.
I can't believe a lot of things. That there's life on Mars. That someone's married to Larry King.
Multiple people married Larry King also, which is weird.
Yes.
I looked up Bing Crosby. He was a bad parent.
Oh, yes.
He was a real dick.
Famously bad.
Do you know that Denise Crosby from Star Trek Next Generation is his daughter?
Yeah.
I did not think I realized that. I guess I don't assume that everyone with the last name Crosby is related to Bing, but maybe they are. He had a lot of kids. Also, another one of his sons is one of the camp counselors in the first Friday the 13th. He gets nailed to a door. The next scene we have with this whole pregnancy thing is Stan gets a call from the doctor.
Hello? Test results. But my wife's far too fat to be pregnant.
So he goes over to, he finally knows what's going on, and he goes over to have it out with Greg and Terry, and I hate this scene so much. I think it's so dumb. It's not funny. It takes way too long.
Well, first he goes and confronts Francine.
Your doctor called. He said the baby you're carrying for 2 gay men is perfectly fine, and you should be very excited.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yes, then he confronts Greg and Terry, and I guess we both had a problem with this scene.
I just don't like musicals, and a lot of the people who make animated shows seem to love musicals, and I just do not share that love, and I don't think there's anything funny about this. I feel like it's
The thing we're commenting on is that when Stan tries to fight Greg and Terry, they put on the score to West Side Story and fight him with choreography.
Yeah, it's not funny.
And then 3 other gay men show up to join the fight.
It feels like a Family Guy gag.
Yeah. What is funny about this joke is that when Stan and Francine go outside to fight about it, The fight is still happening without Stan. Like, they're just dancing in the window.
That is the one saving grace of this gag. I will say, for a straight man, Seth MacFarlane really seems to love musicals.
Yeah. Well, he has a nice singing voice.
He does.
I mean, I can see why people into animation love musicals because, both have to be exaggerated over the top.
I guess it makes sense. I mean, the South Park guys love musicals, and the Simpsons guys really love musicals. And most of what I know about musicals, I learned through the Simpsons. Bob's Burgers sings all the fucking time. I just don't love it.
I would love to read a book about musicals and animation.
I mean, this is not what I say. This is something Rachel Bloom says, but she says that the musical is a uniquely American creation. And it is when you consider, like, it's not an opera, but like the style of musical we have is something that started here. And I'm like, okay, I guess you would know about that. The animated sitcom is also a uniquely American creation.
Even though they were largely animated overseas.
Yeah, there's probably something about like why these things evolved as a way of entertaining and heightening a world. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So back at the house, Stan gets a talking to from Haley, and it is remarkable considering that the origin of this show was the relationship between a conservative father and his liberal daughter. This is the first time Haley's really done anything the entire episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
She uses anti-abortion logic against Stan to make him become a supportive husband.
Francine, you are single-handedly bringing on the downfall of society.
It's my body. It's my decision.
You know, Dad, you accused Greg and Terry of creating a bad environment for this child, but you're the one who's stressing Mom out, and that's not good for the baby.
Yeah, but...
Do you want to be responsible for hurting an unborn life? Do you?
No.
Stop thinking of yourself and start thinking about what's best for the baby.
And it works.
Oh, yeah, it does. We think it works.
Haley's interesting because she's the least funny of the main four family members. And you haven't watched Community, but she's kind of a Bretta, where she's the one who like speaks up for like a liberal cause. And I don't know why they seem to have a hard time making her as funny as Steve, Stan, or Francine. She's voiced by Rachel MacFarlane, who is Seth's sister, and she's really good.
I think it's hard to make her funny because she has to so often be a wet blanket, and it's hard to make a wet blanket funny. She does get storylines that I genuinely enjoy. I think it is the end of season 2 where she's programmed to be a secret agent, and Stan activates her to marry obviously a gay man.
Oh, I don't remember that part of that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Is it gay enough?
Not really. It's funny, but in a maybe kind of mean way.
So Britta is also a wet blanket. Diane is often a wet blanket on Cheers, but they make her funny. I think you just need to have the right sort of writing where she's not a scold. You can't make her a scold.
Yeah. Diane doesn't view herself as correcting people. She views herself as enlightening them. Mm-hmm. And it's different. She thinks that by celebrating the things she loves, like art and literature, that she's showing people a light, where it's just a different thing when you think you're correcting someone. She doesn't view the patrons of Cheers as wrong. She just doesn't think they've been shown the right answer.
And Haley thinks her dad is 100% wrong about like everything.
I guess we can turn that into a plug for our upcoming Shelley Long cast, where we will talk about the movies of Shelley Long and the ways in which they can also relate back to her character of Diane Chambers on Cheers.
Who is one of the most important characters in TV history. Says us. Coming soon to your ears. Yeah. On Patreon, though.
Yes.
You have to give us money. So Haley puts him in his place.
Honey, I'm sorry. Whether I like it or not, you're pregnant. And I have to start thinking about the baby's well-being. So from now on, we're in this together.
Stan, I'm using the bathroom.
Then I, too, will use the bathroom.
Oh, Stan.
I don't know. I think that would be pretty hot.
I don't want to be walked in on by anyone when I use the bathroom. It's not fun. We have a montage of Stan being supportive and Greg still being freaked out. And it ends with Stan and Francine and Greg and Tara assembling nursery room furniture, and Francine's water breaks and Greg freaks out again.
Oh, no, I'm not ready. No.
Greg, get in the car.
No.
Greg!
No!
Remember in Ibiza when you thought you couldn't wade through the foam on the dance floor? Mm-hmm. Well, you did that, and you can do this.
Cut to the hospital. Fran delivers. Greg is nervous. It's very actually sweet how he holding the baby's hand instantly gets him over his like nervousness about being a parent.
It's a girl!
She's beautiful. Oh, Greg, here.
No. I am in love with this baby.
And they want to thank Stan, and Stan is no longer there. He has taken the baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
He slams the umbilical cord in the car door, and it is gross.
It is really gross. So Stan is on the run.
And now, the Channel 3 Noon Report with anchor partners Greg Corbin and Terry Bates.
A baby was reported missing today from Langley Memorial Hospital. The incident occurred at...
He took our baby!
He just took her!
Greg, get a picture of her on screen.
I don't have a picture!
Then describe her.
She looks like an angel!
What am I doing? I was a reporter, for God's sakes. I'll track her down.
Terry, you were a food critic.
Oh, you don't think I can find her? I found a decent beignet at the airport. I can find a baby.
I can't believe your father would do something like this.
I can.
Yeah, I guess I can too. I don't know why I said that. Hello?
Francine, it's me.
Stan, where are you?
I'm here with Liberty.
Who?
Liberty Bell. It's the name I gave the baby I'm saving. Poor girl, I think she's slow. She's just staring at her cheeseburger.
Stan, you bring her back right now!
Sorry, Francine, but I've prayed on this, and I'm taking her to Nebraska to put her up for adoption.
What? You can't give someone else's baby away!
Nebraska begs to differ. Gay couples have no legal rights there. Once I cross that state line, Greg and Terry can kiss their custody goodbye.
You're never gonna get away with this, Stan. You know I'm gonna tell him. Why would you even call me?
Because something hard and black just fell off the baby's belly button, and I thought it was beef jerky, and... Am I gonna die, or am I stronger than ever?
The only thing I remember from the movie, like Water for Chocolate, is that someone makes soup out of the placenta.
It's rich in nutrients.
Yeah.
Having grown up with sheep, because my family raised sheep, the first thing that happens when new lambs are born is that the mothers lick off the placenta, and they make this very strange noise that they only make when they're eating their child's placenta. Isn't that nice?
No.
Okay, fine. Stan gets spotted. He says, every time I let a man take a picture of me in a men's restroom, it goes bad. And then he's harassed on the road by the Rainbow Truckers Brigade, which is gay truckers. And he veers off into a cornfield, escapes his car, and a redheaded woman in is it a tractor? What is she doing?
No, it's like a ATV of some sort.
ATV. She's like, get on. And she whisks him away.
Yes, she whisks him away and takes him to shelter in her home, which is a lovely farmhouse with 2 lovely children. And she is waiting for Al to come back home.
Stan, this is my daughter, Mary.
Oh, a baby! I love babies! Jesus was a baby.
Yes, he was. And he was also a murder victim.
Al's home, and Stan is in the process of complimenting Lily's home and children. And in walks Al, who is a very Gloria Steinem-looking woman in a business, like ladies' business outfit. She is voiced by Jane Lynch, and Lily, her wife, is voiced by Leisha Haley, who was on L Word.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got actual lesbians to play lesbians, so good for them.
Lily, you have fantastic children, a beautiful home. I can't wait to meet your husband and shake his hand.
Hi, honey. Ah, I see you found him.
Sir, I must tell you, you have a lovely family. You're a lucky man.
Actually, Al is short for Allison. I'm a woman.
Right. You know, I love long hair on a man. Grown-up Jesus had long hair, but his breasts weren't as luscious as your... Holy you're a woman!
Yes, Lily is my partner. We're a lesbian couple.
Oh, my God, does Al know?
Stan, we thought if we showed you how happy and healthy our family is, you'd see that there's nothing wrong with a gay couple raising children.
I did not realize that was Jane Lynch's voice for some reason, because maybe I was thrown by the Gloria Steinem-ness of that character.
I was also thrown by the long hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it turns out they wanted to show Stan their happy and healthy gay family so that he would get over his fear of letting gay parents raise children.
Which means they knew who he was, and she recognized him from the news immediately. I guess Greg and Terry are the news, so it was on the news a lot.
Yeah, they give a sort of now depressing, naive liberal speech about how they didn't want to call the cops. They just wanted to reform him on their own.
Change his heart. And as they're saying this, you see Stan jumping out the window with
their children.
He steals their children well. He is now on the run with all 3 children. He's like, don't worry, I'm going to take you to an orphanage in Nebraska.
Have we pointed out that he names the baby Liberty Bell, which just made me miss Glow?
That's true. He does name it Liberty Bell, and they keep that name. That baby's name continues to be Libby.
I also love how that baby is drawn.
Yeah, just kind of sleepy and dopey. Like, he thinks that she might be slow because she's barely touched her hamburger.
Yeah, he gives her coffee.
And hamburger. Lily and Al's kids go from trying to talk Stan out of kidnapping them, and then they just start fighting with each other. And he's like, Steve, Haley, stop fighting. And then he's like, oh, they're just like my kids.
Your nightmare is over. It might take years, but maybe someday a straight family will adopt you.
But we already have a family, and you said we're a great family.
I know, you seemed like a great family, but you can't be. There's 2 mothers and no father. Jason, who's going to teach you how to play football?
My football coach?
Well, okay, that could work. But Mary, who's going to carry you on their shoulders so you can see the parade?
My mom. She's 6 feet in heels.
Huh.
Move your stupid doll. It's in my space.
She's not stupid. You're stupid. Oh, she's mine, though. Give her back. Give her back.
Steve, Haley, knock it off. I mean, wait. You fight just like my kids. Just like normal kids.
We are normal kids, you moron.
And none of the horses are eating each other.
And he realizes he was very stupid about this whole thing and screeches to a stop right before the Nebraska border where there's a bunch of conservatives can't wait to get their hands on these children. And the Rainbow Truckers and Greg and Terry are there all of a sudden, and Lily and Al are there.
Yeah, Stan's goal during all this is to take the children away from a loving home so he can bring them to an orphanage to find them a loving home.
Mm-hmm. He apologizes. Terry punches him in the face. Rightfully so.
Yeah, and then we cut to a scene where all 4 are having a picnic with the baby, except that Stan is like probably 50 yards away because of a restraining order.
Gucci, Gucci, go! Did she smile when I said that?
No.
You ever gonna drop the restraining order? No. She likes sugar in her coffee.
And he's like, did she smile? No. Like, she likes sugar in her coffee. That's how the episode ends. American Dad is a delight. What did you think of this episode overall?
I mean, overall, you know, I obviously enjoyed it. I think it's good. Like, I think you're right to point out that what's nice, but also sometimes frustrating about Stan's relation to the gay characters is that it is evolving, and that there's going to be lots of missteps along the way. But, you know, it makes sense from where he's coming from as a character.
The next episode in the gay saga of American Dad is Terry's father, voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, who I think is like a football star, visits, and Terry has not ever told his dad that he's gay. So Stan has to move in with Greg, and they kind of become like a couple.
Maybe we'll do it.
Maybe we'll do it one day. Probably not next week.
How'd you feel about the episode, Drew?
I think it's really good. I like the idea that smart people say it all the time. Like, being woke is not an on-off switch. It's like a continual process, and it's going to be a lot of work. And people don't like to think about it being a lot of work because a lot of work is often a lot of work. But you have to continually like update your operating system to whatever's current, and try to make sure that you aren't becoming obsolete with your beliefs.
Yeah, and that goes for ourselves and also the people we want to be better. Like, they're not just going to be better. You have to work at it.
Which means you have to have awkward conversations with your parents sometimes.
All the time.
When they say like, I don't understand what these protests are about. And you're like, okay, well, here's what's going on. And hope that some of it sinks in. I did have to unfriend one of my parents' friends on Facebook today.
I don't know why you are friends with your parents' friends on Facebook.
Because I've known this person since I was literally a toddler, and they are almost like family, but like there was so much wrong. I'm like, I can't fix this one. This is someone else's job.
Yeah.
You're not going to be part of my stream of garbage anymore.
Yeah. For people who aren't listening to the show the week it comes out, the context for this is that we are still in quarantine, and also there are protests. So curfew as well.
Quarantine and curfew. What a time to...
I'd watch that show, Quarantine and Curfew.
Are they cops?
Yeah, of course they're cops.
We don't watch shows about cops anymore.
Oh, I've trapped myself.
You walked into it. I have one final question for you, Glenn.
Okay.
Is Seth MacFarlane hot? Sometimes I think,
sometimes yes, sometimes no.
I can't explain what it is that changes about it. And it's not really even based on his like creative output. I just like, sometimes I'm like, oh, he's really hot. And other times I'm like, I don't see.
Well, there's something unreal about him. Like, he looks like a CGI character, kind of.
I think it's because he has like really nice skin.
Yes,
and
that is exactly why it is.
Yeah, he looks like a Final Fantasy character. It's like you have no flaws in your skin. How is that possible? Okay, well, that's settled.
Is it? I think I said maybe or sometimes.
Yeah, it's
okay. Maybe you're okay.
Like there is no answer. He's Schrodinger's cat of sexiness. Glenn, if people want to, I don't even have one this week. My brain stopped working right now. If people want to tweet at you, where should they tweet at you, Glenn?
On Twitter, you can find me at iWriteWrongs, IWRITE wrongs, or on Instagram at Bros Courts, BROS Courts. But this week, you should be tweeting at and about Black Lives Matter and other such causes related to this.
I'm on Twitter at Drew G. Mackie, MACKIE, and this podcast is on Twitter, once again, at Gayest Episode. If you followed us before, you're not following us now probably, because we lost hundreds and hundreds of followers when Twitter deleted our account. Please refollow us, Gayest Episode. You can listen to previous episodes of Gayest Episode Ever at gayestepisodeever.com. Please give us a rate and review on iTunes. They are helpful for the reasons you hear on every podcast ever. Once again, you can find our Patreon at patreon.com/gayestepisodeever. This is a TableCakes podcast. TableCakes is a Los Angeles-based podcast network, and you can find out about all our other shows, including our new show, Happy History, by going to tablecakes.com. Our logo was designed by Rob Wilson. The show is transcribed by Sarah Neal. They have websites too. Those are linked in the show notes. Glenn, you know one thing I actually really don't like about American Dad?
Oh no, what? The
title ends on an exclamation point, and it doesn't need to be there, and it makes writing the name of it kind of annoying, and it also makes it really awkward if you want to put it in the possessive. Like American Dad, exclamation point, apostrophe S.
I'm sorry.
Don't do that. It's really awkward. Also, don't name things that are questions either for that reason. It's just typographically a nightmare. Give copy editors a break.
No.
Okay. Podcast over.
Bye forever.
A TableCakes production.
Looks like things are getting too spicy for the pepper.